papers with the journalist Dawn Neeson and the broadcaster and writer Edward Adu. Welcome back to both of you.
Good morning.
So much around today, so many different issues in the papers, aren't there? Dawn, you've picked out the rail strike that we're going to face in the next couple of weeks. 3 days of strikes, and they say it's going to be one of the biggest since the 80s. You've picked out an article in the Daily Mail about this, so what's their take?
This is basically Labour's take on the strikes. As we know, Sir Keir Starmer has refused to actually come down on one side of the fence or the other. It's not like him, is it?
I think he said he doesn't want the strikes to go ahead, hasn't he?
He has said. He has said that he's not. He doesn't. He said, Anna, they shouldn't go ahead. He hasn't said I want them to or I don't want them to. But however, Labour's Wes Streeting, who is the Shadow Secretary of Health and Social Care, has come out and has said that they should go ahead and he will be backing them, as has Lisa Landon. There is some frustration in the Labour ranks that Sir Keir Starmer won't actually back the strikes, because obviously Labour are the party of the unions and the working people. But I mean, Anna, it just sounds, this summer is just getting worse by the minute, isn't it? We can't fly anywhere because the airports are in chaos. We can't drive anywhere because we can't afford fuel. And the 21st, 23rd and 25th, we've got the RMT going out. The ASLEF union now, the drivers' union, have announced they're also going out on the 23rd and the 26th of June. And in London and the South East, we've got tubes and trams going on strike as well now. So it's not looking good. I mean, this is obviously our sort of like Labour still sort of like, as I said, Keir Starmer sort of sitting on the fence on it, and obviously the Conservatives saying this is going to inconvenience so many people. And I think it will. I mean, it's really going to affect ordinary working people in this country. I've got a friend, we were talking about care home workers earlier on, a friend who's a care home worker, and she will basically lose her job. She can't afford to drive, she can't afford a car, she can't travel to her job on a train. She's going to be out of work, Hannah. There'll be so many people that will be, affected so badly by this.
Yeah, nightmare for passengers, of course, although the railway workers will say that we just, cost of living is squeezing us, and they feel that they need to be listened to on that front. It's such a difficult one, isn't it? Okay, let's move on to the Times now, Edward, and this is about hospitals and visitors, and it's really interesting that we're still seeing some of the effects of COVID, although it's not been in the headlines so much recently.
So some of the restrictions have still been in place. So for visitors, there's still restrictions, and you'd think where things have started to open up, where we're allowed to go to football matches, obviously we had the big Jubilee celebrations and sort of mixing of big crowds and stuff, but in hospitals they're still being very selective, refusing allowing visitors, and some families have been asked to kind of to choose which members are allowed to visit to members at hospital. Now I had a couple of procedures done this year, and at my local hospital, and they're great. But when I've been there and I've seen the kind of environment, it's still kind of working within a kind of COVID practice where clinicians and staff are masked up, and it just made me think, in terms of the psychological element for the staff, they must feel a bit strange and weird, as when people are sort of not sort of loitering, but kind of just getting on with their lives and sort of being not wearing masks, but then they're being told that they have to do it. But then also for patients who are critical and they need to see loved ones and in order to keep them going, but they have to be very selective. And I think what's striking about this story is the Health Secretary Sajid Javid has said that hospitals needed a really good clinical reason to prevent visiting. So I mean, that's come from the top, from Sajid Javid to say, well, look, in actual fact, the trust, the hospitals in particular, have to think about this, and it's ultimately their decision. So in a sense, it kind of says who's calling the shots in terms of endorsing this or saying. Sajid Javid has clearly said, look, it's things have to be relaxed, but then is it down to the trust? Is it down to the particular hospitals to say we have to make judgment? And of course, COVID cases have increased, which is not good. But I think we have to kind of get to the crux of it and get back to some sort of normality, because walking around a hospital and seeing people masked up, and also families being prevented from seeing loved ones who are in a critical condition. I mean, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, I know. It's another sticky issue, that one, isn't it? Dawn, let's move on to a story. This is Inside the Times too. The headline is "Gender Neutral Advice Turns Girls into Pupils Who Menstruate."
Anna, can we just make this stop now? Everyone's frightened to use the word woman or girl in case it offends somebody, or I'm not quite sure who we're meant to be offending by this, but this is a document on the Department for Education's website detailing how providing menstrual products to girls did not disadvantage anyone under the Equality Act. So what they've done is they've actually not used the word woman at all, or girl, apart from in a tiny footnote. It's a 7-page document, and it's students who menstruate, young people menstruate, and learners who menstruate. And there's one mention of the word girls, Anna. Now, I get that we don't want to offend anybody, but it's sort of offensive to women just not to be able to call us women or girls. And, you know, on a serious note here, it's all... Puberty is a very confusing time for so many young women, and this is just making things even more complicated. And especially, Anna, if English isn't even your first language, and you're sort of, you're being told that you are a person who menstruates, we need to be much clearer about this. And I think there's a tiny proportion of people who are offended by it, but lots of women who are getting quite angry about it. And, you know, on a similar note, the NHS web pages on the same website talks about ovarian, womb and cervical cancers, but no longer refers to the word women, whereas the prostate cancer one uses the word men. I don't understand why the word women and girl is so offensive anymore, Anna.
Well, I guess they would argue that they're trying to be as inclusive as possible and use a gender-neutral language that includes people who have a female body but don't identify as women, like transgender men. That's the argument they would use, no doubt. I'm going to move us on, and I'm going to go to a story now, Edward, that I promised for hours that we would get to. It's the front page of the Daily Star. I think you've actually got... you have got the front page, that's right, and it's about Britney Spears' wedding. So take it away, Edward.
So she tied a knot. She was being freed from her conservatorship that she had, which prevented her from getting married. Everything seemed to have been going well, and her ex, Jason Alexandra, gate crashed, and he streamed it on social media on Instagram. I mean, that's a nightmare for any couple to see their ex gate crash. And I think he got arrested as well for breaking into the grounds. I mean, I'm sure Dawn will agree, and anyone else. You just don't want that to happen. You would keep your exes away from your wedding.
I think, yeah, Dawn's nodding there.
She did it again. I think it's her third marriage, isn't it? And it's described as an intimate ceremony. Intimate in as much as she had Donatella Versace, Madonna, Paris Hilton, Selena Gomez, and will.i.am there.
Okay.
Not her mum, her dad, sister though. It's so showbiz, isn't it? It's astonishing.
I didn't get my invitation either. Okay, we are out of time. Sorry, Edward.
As well.
Okay, I must thank you both. Thanks so much. Nice to see you this morning.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Top stories next.